Well, it's no secret when you're over 30, being single and staying steadfast in the church can be a challenge, but there are some things that singles can do to overcome this. Earlier in the show, we talked about some of those challenges, and now we're going to talk about how to overcome them. Joining me are Wangsgaard and Amy Stevens. Both attend the Mid-Singles Parleys 7th Ward. And let's talk about how to maintain your testimony as a single member in the church. In a family-centered church, you're both coming from different positions. Mark has never been married. Amy has been divorced for 11 years. And Mark, you've attended both mid-singles and a family ward. Why is it sometimes difficult for mid-single age folks to stay active in the church?
You know, that's a great question, Michelle. And I think, first of all, I'm so grateful personally for all the leaders of the church and ward members and stake members who work so hard to help us to be active. Such a great blessing. But I think there are a few challenges that we face. I think the first is that loss of hope, where when we're fresh off our missions, we think, hey, marriage is coming up any month now, any year. Pretty soon it becomes any decade, and it gets a little challenging. And so we start to have a harder time holding to the iron rod.
What about you, Amy? What singles challenges do you find in being in the church?
Well, I think we grow up learning that we're preparing to be a wife and a mother, and then when that doesn't happen, it's kind of, what do we do then? So I remember going through that realization when I was, I think, my late 20s, saying, okay, I went to BYU, but I didn't get that ring by spring, so now I've got to decide what I'm going to do instead. Are the pressures and judgments different for single men and women?
Yeah, I think that a lot of the responsibility is on the brethren, as it should be, to ask girls out. And I think sometimes maybe we get reprimanded for maybe not being proactive enough, but some of that is very, very helpful and very necessary.
Too much hanging out maybe and not enough dating? What about you? What from a woman's point of view?
Well, I do think that women have it a little easier in that regard, that they're not looked upon as the one that is at fault, so to speak. But sometimes I don't know if that's so productive to really try to blame someone. I think it takes two, and there's things that both sides can do to be more effective in the dating scene.
Now, you've both attended mid-singles ward, where you are now, and also family wards. What are the pros and cons of attending each of those for mid-singles age?
Boy, you know, I love the family ward for the chance to serve. And I was called to the young men pretty quickly in the family ward. And it was a great opportunity to really be an example and to share my missionary testimony with those young men who are getting close to that missionary age. But not as many options to date. Whereas in the singles ward, so many options, but sometimes the wards are so large it's easy to get lost.
So how can you integrate yourself into a ward without getting lost?
The family ward was a great experience. I know that not everyone has that same experience. Sometimes they feel like people are sort of saying, why are you here? The singles ward is down the street.
Right.
But I was lucky because I had a bishop who put me in young women's, and he really valued who I was as a single and said, you know, a lot of these young women are going to be widowed, divorced, and need your counsel and example.
So how do you stay steadfast and not compromise your standards?
That's a great question. You know, I think so much of it, as President Hinckley said, we need a calling, we need a friend, we need a testimony.
Right.
And I think so much of it is drawing close to the Lord and serving. There's so many singles I know that are ordinance workers in the temple, veil workers, or go on expeditions with other singles to third world countries. And these things are so helpful in helping us to not be selfish, but and to also draw closer to the Lord, to be strong.
And what about you?
I think appreciating the good things about being single, there are some benefits as long as you don't get too comfortable there.
Yes.
And surrounding yourself with friends who have your same ideals. I mean, going back to the strength of the youth that we grew up with, there's a lot of great things in there that we should continue to follow.
Those standards are for everyone, you know. Okay, well, best wishes to you. So thank you so much for coming and visiting with us today. Great ideas.
Thank you so much.
Well, no doubt.